Hey, you. Yes, you. I'm going to come closer because I'm talking to you. All right. I know that if you're like me, that you've experienced feeling a panic attack. And spoken from experience and spoken from somebody who's experienced a panic attack, I know it's not fun. Okay. So today we're going to talk about panic attacks because I know how scary and I know how terrifying that can be. You get this thing where your heart races, you can't breathe, your chest tightens, your mind spirals, you're all over the place. You feel like you lost control. You feel like you can't regain control and you're never going to regain control. All right. But here's the truth. Panic attacks, as scary as they are, and as as dangerous as they might feel, they are not dangerous, right? They're the brain's way and the body's way of letting us know that there's a problem, right? And there's something even better. You can learn how to manage those panic attacks. And today we're going to talk about a step-by-step guide of how to manage panic attacks and stop it in its tracks and regain your sense of calm. Okay? You ready to do that with me? All right, let's get started. So why don't we start by talking about what happens during a panic attack? Okay. A panic attack can be described as just a sudden wave of intense fear or anxiety on a person. Okay. Um, Now, a panic attack typically peaks within about 10 minutes or so. All right. Symptoms of a panic attack, which we kind of discussed some of these earlier. But the physical symptoms are racing heart, chest tightening. You feel like your mind is spiraling, right? You feel like that you're starting to get out of control. You have some dizziness and breathlessness, right? Like you can't breathe. Some mental symptoms of a panic attack are you might start to feel some disassociation where you feel distant from reality, detached from reality, fear of going, and I use this word very loosely, fear of going crazy. That's what your mind starts to tell you, or dying. Okay, those are some of the mental symptoms. I know a panic attack feels like it's life threatening, but I want to tell you a panic attack is not life threatening. All right. It's not dangerous, right? And it cannot harm you. We just got to make sure that we get the nervous system back to where it needs to be. And that's what we're going to do today as we talk about some of these techniques of dealing with panic attacks. Okay. Um, what are the root causes of some panic attacks, right? Panic attacks are triggered by an overactive fight or flight response. Now, when I talk about fight or flight response, I like to talk about fight, flight, and freeze, right? Now, there's a fourth one that people like to add, and that fourth one that some mental health professionals like to add is Fawn. Okay, so you might have a really good understanding about what fight means. You may have a really good understanding about what flight means. It just means you're running. Um, Many have an understanding about what freeze means, but many may not necessarily have an understanding about what fawn means, right? Fawn is the people-pleasing element of panic or anxiety, right? And some researchers would say that fawn is people pleasing. Since it's people pleasing, that when you fawn, right, that means that you will appease your attacker or appease the panic that's coming or appease the thing that's intruding in your brain, right, so that it will let you give you some relief or give you some respite from what you're actually going through in that moment. So I want you to think about fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. I like that fourth one, fawn, because it kind of encircles the whole area of sort of panic, particularly in the moment panic, right, or anxiety, right? So you can think about that. You know, everybody's different, right? Fight or flight are the two medical terms. It really, I think you could put freeze in there as well as a medical term, but then fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are some really good things you can think about when you start to understand panic attacks. Okay. Now, overactive fight or flight response is the body's way to react to danger, even when there really isn't real danger present. All right. Fear of panic attacks typically leads to more panic, and that's not what we want. All right. And then when we get more panic, there's just like this vicious cycle of fear of a panic attack, and then having more panic, and anxiety, and then which leads to a greater fear, which leads to more panic and anxiety. And you just get this vicious cycle that you can't break out of. All right. Now, what is the key to stopping the panic in that moment? We have to teach our brains that these sensations are not a real threat, right? They're just a fake threat or a false threat. All right. All right. Now let's talk about a step-by-step guide to stopping a panic attack. All right. The first thing you want to do is you want to recognize the panic attack and name it. All right. You want to say to yourself, acknowledge and be aware, hey, this is a panic attack that I'm going through. All right. That actually puts you in control of the panic attack, right? You want to say, even though this is a panic attack and it feels scary, this panic attack will pass. It's not going to stay there, right? I'm not going to be in this panic attack forever. This panic attack will pass. You want to acknowledge that your brain is overreacting to a false alarm, okay? And that just thinking about your brain reacting to the false alarm in that way will reduce the amount of fear. You ever been somewhere where everybody thought it was a fire, and somebody pulled the alarm and everybody's afraid, or maybe somebody thought there was an active shooter in the place and they pulled the alarm and say, hey, everybody get out, right? But it wound up being a false alarm, right? Better to be safe than sorry. So it's your brain's way of telling you there's something wrong. But a panic attack is a false alarm, okay? It's not real. It doesn't present real danger. It is very real what you're feeling, but it doesn't present real danger, okay? It's perceived danger, right? So the second thing you want to do is you want to control your breathing. Okay, so panic makes you breathe shallow and fast, and this worsens your symptoms, all right? So before we've talked about a 4-7-8 breathing technique. I like box breathing as well. The 4 sides of a box. And one of the breathing techniques that I like to use with my clients is I like to breathe through words, right? Like I might breathe them through words like help, like I might tell them when they breathe in, I might say, I'm healed, I'm elated, I'm loved, I have purpose, right? That kind of thing, right? I'm healed, I'm elated, I'm loved, I have purpose. And we've breathed through the 4 sides of a square or a box, okay? H.E.L.P, right? And you can do that for yourself, right? Just a very small trick to kind of get through the panic attack in the moment, right? You want to continue to repeat this, help, until you get to a point where you're dysregulated and you start to feel a shift in the panic levels. The next thing you want to do is you want to ground yourself in the present, right? Engage your 5 senses. That we've talked about this on this channel in previous videos. It's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. It's 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you can taste, right? And what this serves to do is it disrupts the fear cycle, right? This is in the cognitive space. It disrupts the fear cycle, right? And it shifts your focus outward instead of inward to the perceived danger, fear, or conflict, okay? Now, the next thing you want to do, which is also important, you want to use a mantra or affirmation, okay? Panic attacks make you believe in worst case scenarios. Just remember thinking about a show that I like, right? I remember the show This Is Us, and they used to play a game called Worst Case Scenario. And in that sense, right, this was Randall and his family just play worst case scenario. And in that sense, okay, the panic attack, that caused them to actually be better, because in their mind, they were like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Right. And if I think about the worst thing that can happen, and if I say to myself, well, I can handle that worst thing, then, what's happening right now is not that big of a deal. Well, that may be effective for some people, but in the midst of a panic attack, you don't want to believe in worst case scenarios, because that's what's going to make the panic attack worse. All right. So you want to challenge worst case scenario, right? You want to challenge that, right? With positive thoughts. All right. So you want to repeat to yourself, this will pass. I am safe. My body is just reacting to stress levels. Okay. continue to repeat that until things become calm, until you can get to a place where you can get over these panic attacks. All right. Step 5, don't avoid the panic attack. I want you to just ride the wave out. Okay. Avoid fighting a panic attack. That's just going to make it worse. All right. I remember many years ago, I was a young man, and there was this pressure in my family to always come to my grandmother's house for Thanksgiving. You know, you were always there was this expectation. You were expected. Are you gonna come to grandma's house for Thanksgiving because she's gonna cook all this food and all that? Well, I had just gotten married to my wife that year, and we had planned to spend Thanksgiving at home, right? And now we just happened to be living in the city where her mom was, right? And so we decided, hey, we're not gonna go up to grandma's house. I don't even know if we probably didn't have the money to do that anyway, right? Long road trip, driving, kids, all that kind of stuff, right? So nah, I'm not gonna do that. Well, my grandmother called me and she fussed me out pretty well, right? And when she was doing this, I had a panic attack because my brain thought that there was some perceived danger, that my grandmother wasn't going to love me anymore, and the world was going to be ending because I didn't come home for Thanksgiving. And I had a panic attack. Thank God my wife was there. She kind of held me down, right? But at that time, I had no clue and no, I had no category for mental health help or mental health kind of regulation or anything like that. So I'm just having this panic attack. I'm breathing hard. I can't. Yeah, my breathing is like, short. You know what I mean? Brief pause breath, like right. And eventually, and this lasted for a while. And eventually, I was able to calm down, regulate myself. I'm a Christian, so I started thinking about things from Scripture, who I was in Christ, those kinds of things, and that really helped me. So remind yourself that you've had this before, especially if you're somebody who deals with panic attacks, right? Let it come, let it pass naturally. Remind yourself you've been here before, you've had this before, and you've gotten through before, and you will get through it this time as well. Okay. So when you're thinking about panic attacks, right? There's some long-term strategies you want to think about as well to prevent panic attacks, right? Because we want to be preventive, right, and not reactive. All right. One of the good therapies for this is cognitive behavioral therapy. That's where we get the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 from. That's where we get some of our breathing techniques from as well. All right. So one of the things CPT can teach you is CPT teaches you to change your response to panic sensations, right? And this is a brain mechanism that kind of changes how you think about panic, right? The stimulation that comes from panic attacks, CBT says, in a cognitive way, right? You're changing the behavior around how you respond to panic attacks or the sensations from panic attacks. Okay, and you want to use regular relaxation techniques like meditation, deep breathing, and exercise. Okay, and limiting caffeine in your normal everyday diet, alcohol, and certain stimulants reduces the likelihood of triggering panic. Right? Facing feared sensations in a controlled, gradual way helps you to retain your brain. Meaning, if you act calmly in response to stimuli this time around, then that means your brain learns to act calmly the next time around. And the more you do it and build it as a habit, the more your brain will continue to build it as a habit. Okay? Right. Panic attacks feel overwhelming, but they don't have to control your life. Right? With these steps, you can learn how to manage and reduce them over time. Right? So if this video helped, drop a like in the comments and share your experience of having had a panic attack. What's it been like for you? How have you been able to maintain and control the veracity of your panic attacks? And if something like this helped you, drop a comment, let me know. If you want more mental health strategies, don't forget to like this video, share it with somebody that you love, somebody who might be dealing with panic attacks. And as I always say, panic attacks don't have to control you. None of these other mental maladies have to control you. We're going to get through this together. And always remember to live royally and live well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.